OTP. I'm Amy Wells. Thank you so much for joining us. We are joined by Coach Mac, Rhett Bryan, our resident draft gurus. And I was thinking, you guys, as we are getting closer and closer to the draft, we are going to start doing a lot more position previews, starting to really dive into who these players are, what they look like, both on and off the field. And it occurred to me that we use a lot of very interesting, very specific language to describe people throughout the draft. There's a lot of terminology, there's a lot of phrases, there's a lot of maybe comparisons or analogies that we use that you pretty much never, ever use to describe a human in polite conversation. You just don't. And so you just don't. And nobody in the world does it better than Coach Mac. Mac has the best just vocabulary of descriptive terms and phrases. So I figured we should all get together here for the OT people so that they are prepared for all of the draft coverage that is to come. And let's define some of these Mac-isms. Let's really get into what these things mean. Are you down, Mac?
Yeah, I mean, it's plain English.
I don't know that it is, though.
It's completely plain English. I
Well,
mean,
there's some plain English involved with
they're English words.
Right, and I know what Mac's saying. It's with the way things are described by people in football evaluation that describe what a player is. But then there's also West Texas coach Dave McGinnis flavors on things, or his own lingo in this.
Which again, we speak English in West Texas, Rhett.
Yes,
I was just talking talking to Amy about goat roping. She said she's never been to a goat roping and a rattlesnake roundup. I'm gonna have to take her to West Texas sometime.
We're just trying to get people to understand Mac-ise.
Yes,
that's what we're trying to do.
Good.
Yes.
I'm ready.
So I have prepared a list of common Mac phrases. It is alphabetized for your convenience. And Rhett, I say we just go back and forth and get Mac to describe what these words, give us a definition of what these words and phrases mean.
Just like he would do a thumbnail description of a player.
Exactly.
Yes. Yep.
All right, Mac, are you ready for this?
Sure, let's go.
Okay,
I like this.
So if somebody is a good anchor, what does that mean?
You're talking about somebody basically on the offensive or the defensive front. And an anchor means when you're getting a charge ahead of you that you can set your feet and you can hold your ground. You can hold your ground and you can reset. Now, the way that they do that, some people do anchor just by pure mass. Some people do anchor by the ability of their lower body to have explosion and extension. But the anchor part comes with its lower body strength, but it's also lower body strength being able to hold your position, whether it's offensively or defensively, and most of it's on the front. Now, it can involve linebackers when you call about set the edge. I don't know if you have set the edge in there in pure English, but you've got to be able to hold your ground. And that's why at the combine they measure the broad jump and they measure the vertical jump, because that's the lower body flex and that's a lower body power.
Gosh, I'm so glad we're doing this. Rhett, take the next one.
When a player has bend or lean.
Bend or lean. And most of the bend starts from the knees down, and it also, when you're looking for players that are either going to have to turn the edge, or you're looking for players that are going to have to change direction. It's not only the bend in the knees, and you've got to have an athletic bend at the knees. It's also the flex of the ankles. The flex of the ankles. The ankles are extremely important because Jarrell Casey is for all of our OT people. That was one of Jarrell Casey's biggest attributes, huge attribute. Because Jarrell Casey, height-wise, was not the measure that you'd look at when Jarrell Casey was just when he first came out of school. If you just saw him in street clothes, you'd say, well, this is a big guy, but he's not. But his lower body flex, especially his ankle flex, was elite. He could flatten out quickly. If I'm coming this way and Rhett is the quarterback here at his launch point, the lower body flex for these guys that they've got to be able to turn and to get to where the quarterback is huge. It also helps them change direction in a short area. So that's what flex is.
So sometimes you refer to that as a motorcycle lean. Is that the same kind of concept where they're able to bend in like their ankles?
Now, see, now you're talking it. The motorcycle lean, though, is off of the edge. Motorcycle lean, if you ever watched a motorcycle race, when they race motorcycles, they always, when they're turning, making the curve, they bend, and that's why they've got those pads on their inside legs. They put that down, and so that they can cut all the wind resistance around the curve and still stay on their line and be able to hold their lane. It's a lot like a runner, running, in the 400 meters, they have to run the curve. You've got guys that are great relay runners that are the stretch runners, and then you've got guys that can run the curve, can lean the curve without losing forward momentum, but also without losing any speed. The motorcycle bend for edge rushers is a huge thing. That is something that you look for, and a lot of that is God-given. That motorcycle lean, when you go to the combine or you're watching the combine on television, when they run that figure 8 hoop drill and lay the towels down, you might wonder, how does that relate? I mean, Jim Washburn, who was a longtime defensive line coach here, was the guy that put that into the combine drills. He put it into the combine drills because that's what he wanted to see. Not only could a guy run the hoop, but he put the towel into it where they had to reach down and bend, because that's where the lean came in. And it was a great innovation by Jim Washburn, because then you not only could see, I mean, it's easy to run the hoop straight up and down, but you're never straight up and down when you're running the edge to go after a quarterback. So there you go.
That is interesting. And I mean, it seems like that's one of the drills that you can see very clearly now, understanding that. Oh, that's why they do that. That makes a lot of sense. It's very transferable to football. Okay, another one. When you say that somebody looks like a dog or worse, a puppy in traffic.
Yeah, well, first of all, there's a difference.
Okay.
A dog is a dude that no matter what is happening, they are imposing their will. Mm-hmm. That's a dog. Now, someone that looks like you just set a puppy out of a car in the middle of a freeway.
Glad no animals were harmed in the filming of this OTP.
And there's nobody that loves dogs more than I do. But if you've ever, and again, I mean, I've been in the country with a lot of dogs in the back of a pickup, which you can't do in the city, but we used to do all the time. And that dog ever either jumped out when the truck was moving, or they fell out, which happened a lot, because they like to run around and they chase the car coming the other way, and then they'd run out of runway and go out the back. The first thing they start doing is just spinning, because they don't know where they are, and if cars are coming, then they're spinning without going anywhere. That's what I talk about when you look at players, that their spatial awareness of what's happening on the field, they're disoriented, they're lost. They just can't find their way.
That's a good one.
When a player is fluid, what does that mean?
The two things that you don't want in your description as a player, you don't want timid and you don't want stiff. Because this game is played in short bursts. It's short, violent, quick bursts. And if you're fluid, if you can transition from start to stop, and you don't have a lot of wasted motion when you're changing direction, you don't have a lot of wasted motion if you're ever having to transition like a defensive back from back to up. If the lack of wasted motion, then someone has fluidity. In other words, they're flowing through the process, whatever it may be. If you're stiff or if you're segmented, I don't know if you have segmented down there, but segmented means it takes you a while. I mean, it's like you're grinding coffee. It takes you a while to get started one way or the other. I mean, if you say, if I'm there sitting there watching tape with you, Amy, and I go, that guy's grinding a lot of coffee right there. It means, it's really hard. It's hard to make that movement. So there you go.
That's a good one. What about foot or horseback?
All right, foot or horseback is this. And this is something that's really easy. You're either riding the horse and you know where you're going, or you've gotten thrown off and you're walking. Okay? So if you don't know whether you're foot or horseback, you're completely lost.
Simple enough.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
People have heard you for years talk about a player that is a Gidget Gadget player. What is a Gidget Gadget player?
Gidget Gadget are mostly smaller players. smaller players that can move really, really quick in a short area. They may not have the requisite size that goes with the position. They may not have the requisite strength that goes with the position, but they are so quick and they can move from one place to the other. And now, mostly when you talk about gadget dudes, you're either talking about receivers because you're talking about players that operate in space, but you're also talking about players that can snap ankles. In other words, make the defender think they're going one way and snap them off. And that's just, that's a gadget dude that is a short area quick elite player.
What if somebody has a good GPS to the ball?
Well, GPS, I mean, we've all figured, that just means you know where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
You know where you're going. You're zeroed in on the ball. You can track in. It's just like putting in the GPS on your car when you're getting ready to go on a trip. It tells you exactly where you're going. You don't even have to think about it. A GPS player doesn't have to think about it. He's always going to the right spot. And most of the time, you're talking about a defensive player because what they have to do is find the football. Some guys can play football on defense but have a hard time finding it. Now, that can happen. That can happen in a lot of different positions, whether a defensive lineman is coming off a block. Now, how quick can he find the ball? How's his GPS? How quick can a linebacker transition from a run to a pass? How can he find the ball or find the route that he's getting ready to get under for a throw? Or if you're a defensive back, how can you find the ball once it's thrown in the air? All of that, you got to have a good GPS for that.
When people hear you say that a player is high-hipped, what does that mean?
People are cut differently from the waist down. They're just cut differently, okay? A high-hip guy has got longer legs now. So when you've got longer legs and you're high-hipped, most of the time, you're going to have to be able to have some of that lower body flex. Because if you're a high-hipped guy that doesn't have much flex, then it's like you're playing on stilts. In other words, it takes you a while to get moving. The high hips aren't a problem if they're involved with some flex that we talk about and the bend in the knees and in the ankles. If you're a high-hipped guy that is stiff, you got a problem.
All right, Mac, this is one that you say over and over and over again, and that is do not be an IE. What is an IE? We're
sitting there watching tape, the three of us together, and we watch 3 plays, and Rhett says, God, that guy can play. I really like that guy. That guy can play. Just watch after 3 plays. And then you say, Rhett, don't be an IE. Let's watch this all the way through. Keep our powder dry until we've watched everything that he's done. An IE is the most dangerous thing in the world that you can be. It's an instant evaluator. Is an instant evaluator is what an IE is. And a lot of the stuff that the OT people, a lot of this stuff that you're hearing now, pre-draft, it's a cottage industry. You got a lot of IE stuff going on.
Making declarative statements about players.
Yeah, before you know what's what.
Ashton Genty's the best running back to come out since Ezekiel Elliott. Well, maybe he is. I don't think we know that right now.
Yeah.
It takes research. And I was told that very, very young because I just wanted to talk. I wanted to sound like I knew what I was talking about. And it was like, shut up.
Okay.
Don't be an IE.
Okay. And you took it to heart, and you've lived that mantra from here on out. I'm just trying
to help.
What about a player that has long levers?
Arms. Keith Bullock. Think of Keith Bullock for all of our people. What his greatest asset was. He was a long lever. Their arms. That's why they measure arm length at the combine. People wonder, why are they measuring arm length and why are they measuring wingspan? Again, you're working in short area, quick areas, and so the longer your levers are as an offensive or defensive lineman, because game is played about separation. If you're an offensive lineman, you want the defensive players off of you. If you're a defensive player, you want to be able to engage and shock and shed. The longer your levers are, the better a chance that you have to be able to do that. And again, when the ball's in the air, your long levered receivers, these combat catches, you can have a defensive back that may have exceptionally long arms, may not be height-wise very tall, but if he has long levers, then he can contest the high throws or can contest the throws inside, wrap around the body without grabbing, without interfering. It's a great attribute to have. And some players, it has nothing to do with height. It has to do with wingspan.
This summer, SeatGeek has your ticket to the best live concerts in Nashville at Nissan Stadium. SeatGeek has the best seat, your seat, for an unforgettable summer. From rock royalty to rap superstars, R&B to country, find it all on SeatGeek, the official ticketing partner of Nissan Stadium. Little Caesars is the official pizza partner of your Tennessee Titans. Download the Little Caesars app and get your favorites delivered today. Delivery fees apply. Now, back to the OTP. We're getting Coach Mac to define some of his better Mac-isms, I think, and we're also learning a lot about players and player evaluation and why certain attributes are so important, but the descriptors are just, beautiful. This one's a really strong one. Oily hips. What are oily hips?
All right, think about it. You're running your car engine.
Okay.
If it runs out of oil, how does it run?
Not so good.
Okay,
yeah.
Not good. I know you've probably done this before, Amy. Let your car run out of oil.
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, well, I know you have, so I'll just let the OT people know that. So if you don't have oil in your engine, it locks up. It locks up and it can't move. And then let's go back to grinding coffee. Let's go back to that's what happens. If you've got oily hips, your movement is fluid. You've got good movement, and changing direction has a lot to do with your hips. If you're stiff in the hips, look, if you get out there on the dance floor and you're dressed good and you look good, but all of a sudden the music starts and you look like a bobblehead out there bouncing back and forth, and your hips aren't moving, not good.
Not good. So oily hips are good.
Really good.
You want oily hips.
You want oil in your engine.
You want oil in your engine. There you go.
On the football field and the dance floor, according to Coach Mac.
Yeah, you want oily hips if you're going to dance.
You've never seen anybody win Dancing with the Stars that doesn't have oily hips.
That's true.
That is true.
That is true. What about a player that you say is more quick than fast?
Well, there's a difference. There's short area quickness and long speed. That's another term that you'll hear are different things. Short area quicks. That's why they measure the 20-yard shuttle. That's why, a lot of times it's not the 40 that they look at for certain positions, scouts do. It's the 10 split. How quick can you go from here to there? It's so much why the wave drill, the shuffle drill is so important. It's why the 3-cone drill that C.O. Braccato, who is a Oilers and Titans legend in the draft, who's got the draft room named after him, that's why he invented the 3-cone drill, to be able to change directions in a short area, to be able to go forward, to be able to go right, to be able to go left. It's extremely, extremely important. The game of football at the highest level, at all levels, is played in short areas. Very seldom is it played linear for a long way. The thing that everybody oohs and ahs over are the long throws, the long runs, the long catches. But when you really watch the greater percentage of the game, it's short area, violent, quick burst. That's why it's so important.
All right, well, let's break this down then. What is short area quickness? Like what? It's just a small amount of space.
We're working right here. How fast does it take me to get from there and back to here? From me to you.
Yeah.
From me to you. Just think about the space that anybody plays in, not only across the line of scrimmage, behind the ball. When the ball is snapped, you've got up to 2.5 seconds to react to anything that's thrown. But you have less than that to be able to react to a 5 to 7 yard area. So your short area quicks are huge. If it takes you a long time to unwind your clock and to get moving, you're behind. You're behind. That's what it is. It's those runners that have the best start. It's the best start. But in football, it's start and stop, because you don't just start and just run. It's start and stop. Change direction.
So what you're saying is, in some position groups, that 10-yard split or the first 10 of the 40-yard dash they run is more important than the 40-yard time.
Absolutely. Offensive lineman, defensive lineman. It's extremely important for linebackers. That's huge. It's short area quickness because the game is played in short, violent bursts.
All right, we've heard this term for years, and I think it sounds like what it is. But
Amy's scratching them off.
yeah,
I am
absolutely.
as we go. Making
What's
sure.
a
This is
tweener?
impressive. You know what impresses me, or not impresses me, it kind of humbles me that y'all been listening all these years.
Well, we try.
I mean, what do you mean? We interact with you every day.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sometimes I wonder. All right, go ahead.
What we have heard this draft term for forever. What is a tweener?
That's when your position, you're not quite sure because of the measurements of size, height, and weight for positions pretty much fall within categories. And if somebody is in between those categories, is somebody a true defensive end in a 4-3 where their hands on the ground, or are they a stand-up linebacker outside in a 3-4 defense? Sometimes are they in between? A lot of times it's happening now the way the game is being played in space. It's the difference now between what we used to term a strong safety, a guy that was down playing in the box closer to the line of scrimmage, or an open side will linebacker. Because a lot of those jobs now have become meshed because of the way offenses are played. And so it's a size differentiation when you're talking about this guy may not have the categorical size for this position, but his attributes allow him to play that position because of some compensating factors.
So it's like the aforementioned Keith Bullock, who moved from safety to linebacker in
100%.
college, and the current guy that is a linebacker here, the 7th-round pick from Miami last year, James Williams, number 52.
Great example, Rhett. 100%. It's 100% right.
What if a guy is willing to throw his face in the briar patch?
This guy seeks contact because this is not a collision sport. This is a violent sport. It's not just natural to human nature to want to throw yourself into something. Now, if you've ever seen a briar patch and you want to throw your face in the briar patch, there's a lot of stuff that could happen to you.
Yeah.
And some of it doesn't feel good. Some guys have little or no disregard for their bodies. They are willing to throw it in there. In other words, and so if somebody is willing time after time after time, naturally, in other words, there is no hezzy in their movement. They're not saying, oh, that looks like a collision, maybe, oh no, please, no. They're willing to throw their face in the fire. And they're willing to go. I mean, it's like a fireman. Those guys that run into the fire, even though you know it's something that's very dangerous, throwing your face in the briar patch as a football player means that that part of the game doesn't intimidate you. And a lot of times that separates players.
So, yeah, that's when you hear somebody over the years talk about this player plays with reckless abandon. That's what that is.
Yeah.
They're going into the action.
Constantly.
Firefighter was a great example because they're going to the fire to put it out while everyone else is getting away from the fire, obviously.
Right, exactly.
And again, it's against human nature. I mean, when
Right.
you first start playing, I mean, just go run as fast as you can into that human.
Yeah.
A big human.
Yeah.
A big,
Yeah.
scary human. Yeah, see what happens.
All right, this term is used a lot when we're talking about offensive tackles. What does it mean when you're called a waist bender?
That's the worst thing you can be. When you're playing, it all goes back to flex. It all goes back to playing with leverage. That's the way offensive linemen get in trouble the quickest. If you'll just think of the dynamics of the human body, if you want to move, and you want to move quickly, or if you want to shadow something and stay with it, you need to have good flex from your hips, from your knees, from your ankles. If you are trying to stay in front of somebody, if you bend at the waist, think what happens. First of all, your knees lock out. Your lower body becomes now you're not spring loaded, you're aboard. Your lower body is a 2x4, and you lose all your power because you never have any power like this. Think of anything that you want to do physically, especially start with the martial arts or anything else. There's nothing you do like this, because when you bend at the waist, you also do what? You lower your head. You lower your head, and so you look like one of those little toys that with a bird that sticks his head, his beak in the glass of water and raises back up, beak in the water, raises back up.
Yeah.
That's a waist bender. You're not going to move very many people doing that.
Is it typically that earmark typically with taller tackles in this?
Yes.
Okay.
But you can be a waist bender no matter what.
Yeah.
If see, being able to stay in a power position is something that you learn very quickly. If you've ever watched, just watch an offensive line coach, a lot of times they just start with stance. Now, not only stance, I'm not talking about their hand on the ground stance. I'm talking about stances with the lower body flex. We're talking about and don't bend. If you bend at the waist to go after somebody like this, you lose them, because now what have they got? They got, a lot of things are going on. If you've ever seen wrestlers, you very seldom see wrestlers because they bend their head and they do like this. Then the first thing,
Yeah.
So that's what a waist bender is. Don't be a waist bender.
The final one that I feel we need to throw in, just to make sure that all of the OT people are up to date on what all of these terms mean, because the number one term you hear out of Coach Mac's mouth more than anything else, and we've heard some of these a lot of times.
Sure.
The number one thing, ladies and gentlemen, keep your powder dry.
Don't panic.
There
Don't
it is.
panic. Don't panic. And it comes from back in the days, when the musket loader was something that was really important if you were having any kind of conflict in war. It always involved putting the ball putting it down, but you had to put powder with it. And if the powder ever got wet, the gun didn't fire. And if the gun didn't fire, whoever was coming after you with bad intentions, you had a problem.
Yeah.
So don't panic. Take care of your business before you go into the fray, and keep your powder dry. Don't panic. Don't panic. And that's something that people have a hard time with. Not, panicking and being an IE go a lot together.
They're in the same neighborhood, we're hearing.
Rhett, how many times have you been told, we'll say this week, to keep your powder dry?
Oh, I'd say a couple by Coach
Yeah,
Mac.
but Rhett,
Yeah.
when I first came here, Rhett's a pretty powder dry dude. I mean, he doesn't. There's not a lot of panic in Rhett's game. Not a lot of panic in Rhett's game. I can say that.
Oh, I get told it like 3 times a day.
Well, we're talking about a different human now.
Wow. Wow.
I get it all the time. What am I, jumpy? Little
I think some people are sitting on go more than others.
Yeah,
But,
I think so.
Mine comes from, and listen, we're all human and it's tested every day, depending on what happens. Life throws stuff at you, your job, whatever. But mine comes from being an old Boy Scout. Be prepared. I just try to be prepared.
I drink a lot of coffee. Anything's possible.
There it is.
I don't know. I'm a loose cannon.
There you go. Write that down for you.
Loose
Loose
cannon.
cannon.
Mac, listening to you talk about all of these things, it is very interesting how much physics you have to understand as an evaluator of athletes, how much human anatomy you have to understand as an evaluator of athletes. Like, there are so many things that go into this other than good football player, yes or no. And so we laugh about this terminology because some of it sounds kind of silly, but in all seriousness, these are very descriptive, easy ways to understand some pretty complex things that you're trying to describe, and that has to be helpful in a draft room.
Well, I've been in legitimate draft rooms, draft preparation, 31 years that I coached in this league. And this is the way you talk. This is the way you talk. When you're writing a report and reading your report, they are not looking for a lot of, as I tell Rhett, they don't want the Charles Dickens part of it. I don't need a lot of words. I need things that describe this player really quick. And I need points, counterpoints, good, bad. And the longer that you're in it, the more I didn't make any of these up. There's a lot of these come from playing ball from high school on up and listening and having coaches tell me, and, don't be a waist bender, or coaches, all those things. But in a draft room, you're 100% right. It's not, you are still trying to evaluate, but you're evaluating traits. And you try to, because everybody's got good and bad traits, and then you try to describe them, and then you try to weigh them, because you're never going to have anybody that's got all pluses. And if somebody's got all minuses, then you're not going to talk about them very long.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works.
It's all very interesting. Hey, Titans fans, with a Kroger Boost membership, you'll score big with double fuel points, free delivery, and lots more. Go to Kroger.com/boost for details. Kroger, the official grocer of the Tennessee Titans. Tighten up. Home is the forefront of all we do. It's why we're so committed to caring for the places and spaces in which we work and live. Ashley, the official furniture provider of the Tennessee Titans. Now, back to the OTP. Well, thank you for playing along with my game.
That was fun.
That was a great game.
I hope it was helpful to the OT people. I hope that you guys got a little better idea of some of the things we're talking about, some of the concepts we're trying to explain and describe, but also some of it's just kind of funny, and we've got to lean into that too. I always like a funny way of describing people. So for Coach Mac, who does not have oily hips, or maybe he does have oily hips. Oily is good. So oily hips and is not a dog in traffic. For Coach Mac.
See, now we're going.
See, I'm learning.
He's not an IE.
He is not an IE, and his powder's always dry.
Yes.
And Rhett Bryan, I'm Amy Wells, and this has been the OTP.